Hello, my name is Jack Shearman. I'm President and CEO of UMS Group, a global consultancy focused on the utility industry. I have a presentation I'd like to share with you today on the energy transition, which is affecting all of us and will, for the foreseeable future, be dramatically changing the experience and norms for any player in the energy sector. For those not familiar with this energy transition, as it's come to be called, I'll take you through the drivers and background, the current major trends, and the challenges faced by industry incumbents, and then talk about opportunities for startups and product innovation as this energy transition rocks the world of current industry incumbents. This is a great summary of the situation. We're in the midst of the largest energy transition in 150 years. The global impact of the transition is affecting every citizen of the world, with some far-reaching developments that pose serious impacts for the energy sector as a whole. This is causing fundamental changes in the construct of the global energy system and all related industries. Renewables, digitalization, carbon trading, CO2 emissions, elimination, capture and storage, and smart grid are just a few of the key challenges on this journey to net zero carbon energy ecosystem by, at the latest, 2050, and potentially much sooner than that. These challenges contain significant threats for oil and gas companies, energy utilities, both electric and gas utilities, as well as for all vendors serving that marketplace. What could these opportunities be for you? Well, let's take you through it. First of all, background. We're experiencing a seismic shift toward a more sustainable, locally organized society. Some call it a circular society, with a strong focus on and commitment to the environment. And this is not just energy, it's all of society. It's described best in the United Nations 17 Goals for Sustainable Development, which begins with no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being across all societies and all communities. You can see number 7 is affordable and clean energy. Number 9, industry innovation and infrastructure. Number 11, sustainable cities and communities. And number 17, partnerships in achievement of all of these goals. Utilities have become aware that this is an existential threat to their regulated monopolies and to their operation as it has existed for the past 50 years. They must reinvent their role and position in this changing landscape, and that pressure on them and the decisions they'll have to make, the actions they'll take, will create enormous opportunities for startups and innovators. Regional differences in these major trends exist, but in general, we're moving from an environment where today a few very large players generate power in a few central power stations, transmit that power out to communities on one-way flows from the generator to the user, and then send a bill at the end of the month. We're moving to a very different environment where instead of hundreds of supplies of power, there'll be millions. Many, if not most, rooftops in residential communities will have solar panels, either discrete or baked into the actual material used for rooftop shingles. Even glass will have membranes built into it that will generate solar power from the sun. The primary role of the energy infrastructure, the utility, will be to interconnect all sources and all uses of power, and to ensure that it's distributed fairly, equitably, and economically. There'll be many small players, And rather than a series of monthly bills, there'll be millions of transactions that will involve tens of millions of customers and potentially more than that numbers of devices that are generating or using power, all interconnected in a complex but interactive network that operates on an electrical basis, a financial basis, and a customer reliability basis. The major drivers in this transition: government policy, where governments are committed to dealing with climate change and see renewable power as one of the primary levers they have available to them. Societal behavior, where customers are becoming more committed to playing their part in managing climate change. And then technology development, where vendors worldwide are hard at work driving the cost of these new devices and new technologies lower and lower, making them more than the right choice from a societal perspective, but also the right choice from an economic perspective. Speaking of economics, this is a chart that shows part of the drive here, and that is that electricity costs have been going up steadily over the last couple of decades. These are normalized prices in multiple countries around the world from 2001 through 2019. In the center of that mass of lines, you can see those, the blue line with the dots is the average electricity cost in the United States. It's gone up about 50% in 20 years. And the average cost of cable TV, the green line with dots. So cable TV has gone up in price. We all know it's expensive, but it hasn't gone up nearly as much as we would have thought compared to a basic commodity like electricity. You can see some countries around the world, notably those where governments have been more interventionist, where they have collected more money from utility customers by raising rates, and then diverted much of that funding back to incentives and subsidies to stimulate the green agenda through expansion of renewable power. Climate change is doing more than driving regulatory change. It's physically affecting many individuals across the world. You can see here two illustrative charts. The one on the left, average the number of above average strength Atlantic hurricane seasons. And you can see here a dramatic increase over the last 2 decades. Similarly, wildfires. We've moved from the last century, where we seem to average somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 million acres per decade burned through wildfires, to almost double that, and are on an increasing rate with 2020, the 2020 fire season burning the highest acreage in the United States in all of our recorded history. Challenges facing the incumbents in the utility and oil and gas industry is dramatic. Some would say life-threatening. The shifts from this energy transition include the following, each of which I would argue poses opportunities for startups and for innovation and new products and services. Number one, energy efficiency and demand. We all know that with SEER ratings, appliances are becoming more energy efficient. But at the same time, there's forecast to be a dramatic increase in the number of appliances using electricity within the average household, and the number of technologies that are going to move from oil and gas or other fossil fuels over to electric drive. So electric vehicles, transportation, heating buildings, and so on are forecasted to increase the amount of electricity consumed by society by 100% or more over the next several decades. Renewable energy being promulgated or pushed by government mandates, but also being made more economically attractive by technology advances and manufacturing economies, scale economies. Process improvements are reducing in rapidly increasing share in the supply mix, with the projection that fossil fuels will be phased out of generation supply for utilities by 2030. That's a mere 8 or 9 years, where the average cost to create a new power plant was often 6 or 7 years, to give you a sense of how fast that change is going to happen. Digitalization, the emergence of new inexpensive sensors is resulting in an avalanche of new data from every part of the electricity grid, all of which needs to be converted to information and then analyzed to make it useful for decision making and improvement of performance. Distributed generation and energy storage. We're seeing the loss of load from grid defection as major customers find it economic to self-generate, often using renewable sources. And we see the rise of the prosumer, the residential customer, who is both a generator and consumer of electricity and is a much smarter customer for all service providers involved. On the right-hand side, we see the convergence of information technology and operational technology, which is going to create enormous new opportunities for outsourcing and new and better business intelligence and operational analytics. We see smart technologies and the Internet of Things enabling greater intelligence and grid self-diagnostics. Grids will become intelligent, will monitor their own condition, identify when they've been damaged from weather or other forces, and will be able to take action without human intervention to repair themselves or to restore electric power from other sources. Digitalization and increasing recognition that asset management cannot be performed using the same calendar-based approach as it has for the last 50 or 70 years. The next great frontier to optimum asset management is going to be risk-based and information-based, automated decision-making, and simple validation based on exceptions by asset managers. And then network evolution, we're moving from that centralized hub and spoke, one-way electric network to a far more diverse portfolio, distributed and highly networked. Utilities are recognizing that this is an erosion of their monopoly. Grid modernization and the incorporation of distributed energy resources at every point in the electric system is creating enormous pressure on utilities to create operating flexibility, to be able to incorporate renewable energy, and to be able to do that in an unconstrained way so that customers will never again hear the answer from a utility, "I'm sorry, you can't install that on our system." The first wave of grid modernization is in the rearview mirror. The next wave will take place both in front of and behind the utility meter. We'll be seeing lots of advances in metering infrastructure and distribution automation. We'll also see the incorporation of customer preferences and desires. Customers will have lots more choice and will be much better informed of options and the impact that their choices are having on the environment, as well as on the energy responsibility and sustainability of our society. Costs are falling. I mentioned that earlier. The blue line here shows that the cost of solar panels has fallen by 60% in the last 10 years alone. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we're seeing 140 gigawatts equivalent of solar installed each year. Just for reference, that's the equivalent of about 140 large new coal-fired power plants being displaced each year. And that's a growing curve, as you can see. This will accelerate the feed-in, the distributed feed-in from every point along the grid and demand more grid flexibility than exists today. The integration of these various solutions, so wind with solar, with storage, and better analytics for predictive power and optionality, is viewed to making the value proposition of each of these more compelling. Electrical energy storage will be one of the most important solutions to create grid flexibility. As you know, most renewable sources, wind, solar, et cetera, are intermittent. And having some storage that allows them the outputs to be stored when they're not needed for use later when they are needed is a vitally important element to making it more dispatchable and therefore something that can truly displace the existing large central power stations. So most of the technologies are in place or on a pathway that will, within a short period of time, provide what we need to get to the future of green, renewable, sustainable power. But utilities are looking for lots more breakthrough technologies. The challenges they face today include aging assets, aging workforce, a growing amount of distributed renewable resources, posing the need for grid flexibility that doesn't exist today, and more decentralized automated energy solutions. And so they're looking to partner, they're looking for innovation and innovators to come to them with solutions that will enable them to get there while there's still time. The opportunities that we see for startups and product innovation include the following. First, on the left-hand side, technologies and products. On the right-hand side, taking data and integrating that data to provide data-driven services from it. On the technology and product side, first, grid mod technologies and integration of those technologies to provide new possibilities for utilities. Mobility solutions for customers, employees, and vendors. Linkages between what's going on in the field and what's going on in generation, what's going on in manufacturing, what's going on in spare parts requirements. So full integration along the entire supply chain, starting with mobility solutions at the front of that cycle. Wildfires. Wildfires are an existential threat to many communities, and detecting them more quickly, helping suppress them, documenting them for better analysis and prediction and avoidance are all going to be essential new products and services. Aerial inspection and defect detection. One of the realities of a utility system is that it's decentralized. They have wires on poles and towers running all around the landscape. Those are all subject to the environment, including wildfire damage, but with the climate change increasing the volatility of our weather and the severity and frequency of major storms, there's an imperative to be more able, for utilities to be more able to quickly understand and identify the specific location and seriousness of any damage and be able to address it. Blockchain applications, not just for transactions, financial transactions, but for energy transactions and for operational security and making our grid more robust and unhackable. Electric vehicles, battery storage, a plethora of new technologies that will make better use, more efficient use of electricity. And then home energy management, both appliance health as well as failure prediction. Imagine a future when the phone rings and someone tells you there's a problem with your air conditioner, or there's a problem with your washing machine or refrigerator. Our analysis says that it's going to fail in 3 or 4 days. We'd like to get a repairman out to fix it before the actual failure occurs. These are all new possibilities waiting for innovation and new products. On the data integration and services side, sensor innovation for digitalization. Utilities basically want everything to be remote, automatable, and touchless. Take the people out and move them from the front line to the back line so that we get away from having to send people out into the field to look around to find problems. Find the problems without that. Behind the meter solutions, energy efficiency, demand management, Outsourced analysis, interpretation, decision support, modeling, forecasting, fill in the blank. Utilities are going to be looking for partnerships, companies that can harness new technology, analytics software, predictive modeling, and so on, and help them make decisions in a faster and more effective way. Data governance, training and certification in new skills. These are all services utilities are going to be looking for. And lest you think of utilities only as potential customers, and they can be, think of them also as potential investors. Utilities are looking for innovation in every one of these areas and are looking for opportunities to invest their capital in new startups. And they're favoring startups that operate in their space because they believe they know something about the space and they can be better judges of what's likely to be successful. And if you have a utility as an investor, they are a wonderful partner because they're very interested in giving you all the information and data you need, in helping you do your pilots and prove out your technology and product, and also would be very interested in then helping you sell this across their sector. So think of them not just as a customer, but as a potential investor and long-term development partner. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that was useful and informative, and I look forward to any questions you may have. Thanks very much.